My audio is connected. Good evening, everyone. Someone just typed me a quick message. Let me know that you can hear me. I can see my audio flashing here. Someone's typing. Thank you. My name is Susie Field, and I'm a partnership broker with Southern Sydney Business Education Network. Thanks. Thank you. I just want to quickly introduce you to our webinar for tonight, which is called How to Bully Proof Your Child. It's brought to you by Interrelate, Youth Connections, Southern Sydney Ben, St. George Christian School, and the Partnership Brokers Program. I will just go through a bit of housekeeping before I hand you over to our presenter tonight, Melissa. Basically, what I'd like to tell you is if there is any audio problems, please check your speakers. If you're finding that there is lots of technical issues, it could possibly be the internet connection and the speed of which your internet connection runs. Don't panic. I will send out a link to the recording of this session as well as the PowerPoint next week, so at least you'll be able to look over the information again. If you find that you still can't hear and you'd like to use a phone-in option, we do have that available to you. I sent it an email, but just quickly to let you know what the phone-in option is again, just dial 1-800-087-367. Pop in the participant passcode, which is 603-507-9711, and that allows you to listen to it on your telephone. Mute your speakers and mute your phone if you do that to ensure that there's no background noise. I really hope you enjoyed tonight's session. There will be time for some questions and answers at the end of the session. Enjoy. I'll hand you over to Melissa, who will introduce herself. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Susie. Hi, my name's Melissa Honor, and I work for Interrelate, and I also work for St. George Christian School. I've worked for Interrelate for over 25 years as a parenting and relationship educator. So I teach parents, and I also work with couples, teaching couples how to talk and argue, resolve conflict and manage anger, which I particularly enjoy doing. I also work at St. George Christian School, and I teach the personal development curriculum to primary school years 3 to 6 children. So I teach things like emotional awareness, bullying, self-esteem, safety, resilient thinking skills, and just anything else that's in the curriculum. So tonight, some of the things that I'll be teaching you or talking to you about are coming out of my teaching and my work with children. I also teach social skills. So I work with small groups of children at the school that I work at, and I teach them skills in talking, listening, resolving conflict as well. I have 4 children aged between 17 and 24. This seminar, I need to say, isn't comprehensive, so this is a bit of a briefing tonight. I run a 2.5-hour seminar through Interrelate, and of course that's a lot more thorough. So tonight's designed to be introductory, but it's really important to understand what bullying is and the nature of bullying so that you know how to teach children about it and equip them, and also that you have a considered approach about how to deal with bullying. So tonight I really would like to have participants understand what bullying is, what bullying isn't, and to really consider some approaches in dealing with bullying that don't just sort of squash it and tell people what not to do, but that really take children somewhere and teach them what to do. So it's looking at an approach that's more informative than just stopping something from happening. So you'll start to understand that as we go on. I think that's all I wanted to say as an introduction. Okay, so let's start to look now at what bullying is and what it isn't as well. So I'm just going to click my PowerPoint on here. I need to say that I'm going to allow some time for some input through the seminar. So there'll be times when I'm going to ask you to write a couple of things down. It might be helpful if you have a pen and paper with you, because you might want to do some thinking and jotting some points down. And then when I ask you to give some input, you'll have jotted a few things down and be ready. So if you grab a pen and paper, that would be really helpful as well. And I'm going to keep lots of questions to the end more, because it's only a short seminar for a big topic, and I'd like to get through more content. And I also think it's going to be distracting for me to be reading lots of comments as I go. So let's look at what bullying is, and I'll just move on to my next screen here, hopefully, and I'll just click it. Here we go. Okay, so bullying is when a person or a group of people continually do something that they know makes another person feel uncomfortable. So bullying is repeated, targeted, and intentional. So it doesn't just happen once. It's not a one-off event, but it's an ongoing event. So I'm just going to tell you 2 brief stories, short stories, and I'd like you to tell me which one is bullying and which one isn't bullying and why. And I'll get you just to type in which one you think. So story 1. There is a group of boys at lunchtime. They're playing soccer. One of the boys shoots a goal, it goes in, but the other boys in the other team said, no, it wasn't a real goal, you didn't actually score, because they obviously don't want him to win. He knows the goal went in, so he's pretty annoyed. He has an argument with one of the boys on the other team, and he loses his temper, pushes someone over and hurts them. That's scene 1. Scene 2, there's a group of girls. There's one particular girl that they don't really like. They're generally kind girls, but when this girl walks past at lunchtime, they close their circle so she can't sit. They sometimes whisper and make it look like they're talking about her. In class, they share things with each other, but they'll never share anything with her. And they make sure that when she's not invited to parties, but she knows about them. Which one is bullying? Which one isn't bullying, and why? So I'm just going to look now and see what you think. If you can just type in, so is the soccer incident or the lunchtime girls incident, which one's bullying and why? So I'll just wait and see what you're typing in there. So someone said bullying is exclusion. We're going to get to that. Bullying is exclusion. Okay, I've got someone typing there. Okay, someone's saying the lunchtime. Why? Why do you think it's the lunchtime and not the soccer? Okay, yeah, exclusion would be part of that. Okay, someone's typing something else, and then I'll move on after that. Okay. Yes, there is a, okay. Yep, okay, good. So someone's saying it's lunchtime because it's repeated, targeted and intended. The other was incidental. Yes, and number 2, because there's an imbalance of power and soccer is isolated. Good. So, yes, so even though the first one looks worse, if you see a group of boys having a fight at lunchtime, it looks worse. And it's very obvious, and it's very easy to say, oh, there's bullying happening because someone's hurt someone. But a group of boys playing soccer, having an argument, and one of them hurting the other is random. It's not targeted. It was going to happen with whoever had the argument. So because it's a one-off incident, it's not targeted, it wasn't sort of intentional, it just happened, you would call that losing your temper and having a fight. So those students would still go to the teacher and say, he hurt someone, he lost his temper, he pushed someone over, but they wouldn't go and say he was bullying me, because it's random, not intentional. The second one is intentional. Those girls are intending to exclude. It's ongoing. It keeps on happening, and it keeps on happening to the same person. So it's not like different people get left out, but the same person keeps getting left out. So those things don't look as bad. They aren't as obvious, and they don't seem as mean, but actually the ongoing nature of that exclusion is damaging. And so you would call that one bullying. You wouldn't go to the teacher over one incident and say, oh, they didn't include me today. But because there's a pattern to it, and you'd see, well, they're not including me, they're whispering about me, they're not sharing with me, they're telling secrets and looking like they're talking about me, and you would look at the pattern, and all those things would add up to bullying because there's a pattern there. And so you would actually go and call that one bullying, even though each incident doesn't look as dramatic as the first one. So I hope that is clear. So, for example, it's really good to know what is bullying and what isn't bullying. So a group of girls who have a disagreement one lunchtime, and don't play together as a result isn't bullying. That's a group of girls having a disagreement, not playing together one lunchtime. It's just a one-off thing. But when it's targeted, intentional and repeated, that's when you'd call it bullying. So it's just important to know what is and what isn't. Some markers of bullying. Okay, there's always an imbalance of power. So someone can be stronger, quicker-mouthed, or sometimes they have more people. Sometimes someone who's bullied by someone becomes a bully back, and they get more people to correct the power imbalance on their side. So there's always a power imbalance. There's an intent to harm. When people bully someone, they're intending to make that person feel bad. Sometimes people say something and they don't realise it's going to make someone feel bad, and they're sorry when they find out. But with bullying, they know they're making the person feel bad, and there's intention behind it. There's also the threat of further aggression. So with bullying, they know it's going to happen again. So with the soccer incident before, it was a one-off incident, it would have got sorted out, it was random. But with the other one with the girl who's being targeted knows it's going to happen again. So there's the threat of further aggression. And sometimes that can build terror in people as well. Not looking forward to coming to school and actually really worried about coming to school. I should say it's not just school. Bullying can happen in the workplace, it can happen anywhere. And so, there's always the threat of further aggression. So I'd like to tell you a story of when I was in year 5, and I think I was in year 6 as well. So when I was at school, I was an asthmatic, so I was sick a lot. I remember when I was in year 5, I was away probably for half the year because I ended up in hospital that year. And there was one particular, so I was sort of skinny, scrawny, covered in eczema, and very non-assertive. So if you're going to target someone, I was a pretty good choice. And I was part of a group of girls, and there was one girl in that group who I would call the ringleader. Now, we never had a meeting and said, she's the leader, but in a group of children or any group, there's someone who ends up with the voice. And this particular girl in my group was the one that people listened to. So if someone else had a thought or an idea, it was sort of dropped to the ground. But when this particular person had a thought or an idea, people listened and they followed through. So I would call her the leader or the ringleader. And she would randomly say to the other girls in the group, this week no one's allowed to play with Melissa. And so that week no one was allowed to play with me or talk to me. And that would go on for the week, and I would sit by myself. And at the end of the week I was allowed back in the group. Some same behaviour happened to one other person every now and then as well. So even though I wasn't bullied every day, I was only bullied every now and then, I acted every day like I could be bullied, and I acted every day to avoid being bullied. So if I was on good behaviour and did the right things, hopefully next week it wouldn't be the week when I was left out again and targeted by this particular person. So bullying, although it doesn't happen all the time, people who are bullied live with the threat of it happening again, and they're acting to avoid it all the time, and which is why it's so harmful. And people live with it when they're not actually being bullied, they're still living with the threat of being bullied or the concern of being bullied, which is why it can lead to terror as well. Okay, so those are some markers of bullying. I'll just move on to my next PowerPoint. Okay, some types of bullying. Okay, there are 3 main types of bullying. Physical bullying is when a person or a group uses physical force to intimidate another person. Now this can be actually hurting someone, but it can also be the threat of hurting someone. So if you don't do this or you don't behave this way, you will get hurt. So it's either actually hurting someone or threatening to hurt someone as well. Social bullying is when a person or a group excludes someone or treats them in ways that make them feel uncomfortable. So that's bullying to do with friendships. Someone's in, someone's out. And again, it can actually be excluding or the threat to exclude. So if you don't do this, if you don't invite me to your party, I won't be your friend. If you don't do this, we won't be your friend. So it's sort of using friendships to control someone and leaving someone out. Now social bullying can be leaving someone right out. So you've got a group and there's a person who's completely excluded. That's a form of social bullying. But you can also have a form of social bullying where there's an inner circle of people in a group and then there's an outer circle of people who are on good behaviour and they're part of the group, but they're not really completely allowed into the group. And so those people can be left on an outer circle and on good behaviour the whole time, so they're never really relaxed in the group. So social bullying can be leaving someone out completely, or it can be leaving someone on this sort of outer rim on good behaviour in a group. And verbal bullying is when a person or group uses words to intimidate and put another person down. So put downs, calling people names, making derogatory comments, making people laugh at them would be verbal bullying as well. Those four sorts of types of bullying can either happen face-to-face, or they can happen on internet, social media, via technology. I'm not going to specifically talk about cyberbullying tonight, but I think that because there are some very good resources on cyberbullying and time doesn't permit, but it's important to know that you can still threaten someone physically. You can certainly do a lot of social bullying and verbal bullying via the internet as well. What I would like to say about technology, I noticed when we looked in at the people who'd signed in tonight, we have quite a few parents of primary age children who are logging in tonight, and I'd recommend that you don't rush in and to get your child too connected to social media. I know it's quite a pressure to have your children connected, and they'll tell you that everyone else has a phone, everyone else has Instagram, everyone else has this. It's very important that when a child goes home from school, that they're actually able to leave the peer group at school. It's actually also better for their resilience if they have leave the peer group at school and have another life happening at home. It's not good for children to never switch off and to always be managing their appearances and always connected to their peers. So it's hard because they want to be, and a lot of children are connected all the time, but it's really important that you be the parent about this and set limits on that. So I wouldn't be, for example, allowing a primary school child on Instagram, on getting connected on things where you chat as much, because they're still managing impressions when they're at home and they're not having a break, and the peer group doesn't finish. So if you do need to give your child a phone for safety reasons at times, if they catch a bus or catch the train, I'd recommend that you have a spare phone in your home, and it's the spare phone. That it's a phone that you give to your child when they need it, when they go shopping, when they're catching public transport. They can use the spare phone then, and they give it back to you later on. So it's something you give them when they need it. So you still allow for safety, but you're not giving them access to that all the time. So I think children do need us to stand in for them as parents, and sometimes be the mean parent and say, my parent won't let me have these things, but actually you're doing them a favour. Okay, let me see. So, just move on. Okay, now I'm going to get you to do some thinking here. There are three types of people in a bullying situation. So there's the bully, and that can be one person or it can be a group of people, and there are different types of bullies, but there's the bully and maybe the ringleader in the group. There's the bullied, so the person who's being targeted and repeatedly treated in a particular way. And then you've got another group called bystanders, and they're quite a large group, and we're going to discuss those, but they're people who stand by and know what's going on. So usually if bullying's happening, people know about it. So even people who aren't involved know what's happening, and I'd call those people bystanders. So what I'm going to get you to do is I'd like you to think about those three types of people. So we've got the bully, the bullied, and the bystander. I'd like you to first of all think about the bully. What do you think the bully is really needing and wanting? So maybe have a think, what's the bully really needing and wanting? What are they trying to get by doing what they're doing? So does anyone have any? Yep, someone's written attention. I think that's a really key thing that a bully's after. Any other ideas? Control, yep. Anything else that you can think of? Self-esteem, yep. Don't know what power is, but I think it's a power, great, okay. Okay, yes, that's right. Any other ideas? Okay. Oh, yeah, good. Okay, so a hug, or actually think by that you're probably saying they want friends. And so yes, I think bullies can seem mean and tough, but actually they're wanting attention. I think they're wanting respect. They're wanting friends in the end, and they're doing that by trying to control and have power, because that's how they think they're going to win respect and attention, by having control and power. So the bully has got some ways that they're going about establishing themselves, getting respect and attention, and they're doing it by controlling, having power. Sometimes if you leave someone out, you feel more in. So that will be something that would make a bully feel included when others are excluded as well. Okay. What I would like you to do is, you might need a pen and paper, because I'm going to get you to choose your top 3 things here. I'd like you to think of, or tell me 3 things that you think a bully needs to learn in order to move on from their behaviour. So if a bully is to move out of bullying behaviour and start to act more productively, what are 3 main things you think a bully needs to learn? So there could be 10 things, but I want you to choose your top 3. So you might want to jot them down, spend a minute to think, and I'd like you to tell me, just type in your top 3 things that you think a bully needs to learn in order to move out of that behaviour and towards something more productive. So I'll just give you a minute to think and to write down your ideas, and then work out what you think your 3 most important ideas are there. So 3 things the bully needs to learn. So I'm presuming everyone's just writing things down at the moment and coming up with some thoughts. Okay, we've got our first one here. I'll just wait for a few to come, and then we'll see what everyone says. Okay, lots of people are typing in at the moment, so I'll have a few come up now. Okay. Yep. Okay, I'll just wait for, okay, great. So I'll just wait for, okay, good. Okay, so some of the things we've got. Empathy is flowing through a few of those things. Consequences of actions, productive ways to gain what you seek. So productive ways to get attention, power and love. Social skills, so again, how to make friends. Yes, skills in emotional intelligence. Respect is an important one. Again, respect. Empathy, consequences, empathy, responsibility. Yep, so everyone's really saying some similar things. So what we want is an approach to bullying that teaches the bully some of those things. So if we want the bully to stop bullying, we want them to learn more productive behaviour. So we want to start teaching the bully and equipping the bully to relate differently and to engage with people not based on control and power, but of course they need some respect, they need self-esteem, they need empathy for the other person, they do need to regulate their emotions, and they need some social skills to do that. So we don't just want to teach the bully not to bully, but we actually want to teach them how to do some things so that they're skilled in doing those things. Okay. Let's look at the person getting bullied now. I want you to think about that person and why maybe they're being bullied. Now, people get bullied for all sorts of different reasons, but if someone continues to be bullied and they become a target, what are 3 things that you think a bullied person needs to learn to do in order to move out of that as well? So, in order not to be a target, in order to deal with the bullying. So I'll get you to sort of get your pen and paper out again. Have a think, and what are your top 3 things that you think a bullied person needs to learn in order to move forward and to do do something more productive. Okay, someone's typing already. Yep. Okay, good. Okay, well, we might have some more responses come, but what we've got so far is, yes, assertive body language. So that's really important, isn't it? We're going to look at that later on. So assertive body language is really important. We don't want them to look like a target. Coping skills, how to cope with the bullying. Important one, realise they're not at fault. If your child comes home and someone's bullying them and they tell you about it, it's very, very important that you say it's not their fault. It's important that you don't say, well, what did you do to annoy that person? Because there's no excuse for bullying and there's no good reason for treating someone that way. So it's important for them to know that it's not their fault. Assertiveness is really important. Self-esteem, because someone with self-esteem looks confident, is less likely to be bullied, and they'll also know not to put up with it. Yes, what healthy relationships looks like is really important. They need to know how to recognise what is healthy and what's unhealthy. Yep, ways to respond, ways to seek support is very important. Yep, resilience, the ability to bounce back. Personal boundaries, yep, assertiveness again, and that's coming out in voice, and we're going to talk more about that, and communication skills. So there's a bit of a theme coming through there in being assertive, body language, communication skills, how to respond and seek support, and I think a lot of that would be confidence and some social skills as well, and seeking support. So there's a bit of a theme coming through there. Thank you. Okay, now I want us to pay our attention to bystanders. So bystanders are people who know what's happening. They know that bullying's happening, and they're standing by. They're not really doing anything about it necessarily. So I'd like you now to put your attention to the bystander and think, well, what 3 things do you think bystanders need to learn in order to be more productive and helpful in their behaviour to stop the bullying as well? So I'll now give you a minute to think, jot your thoughts down, and we'll see what you come up with. Okay, some of the responses are just going to start coming in, I think. Okay, so we've got one up so far. We've got someone else typing. Okay, so far we've got personal boundaries, assertiveness of voice, and communication skills. Oh no, that was the last one. Okay, yes, they need to know to intervene, to report the incident, and express the dislike of the situation. And I think we've got a couple of other people. Yes, to use their strengths to help and encourage the bullied. Good. Model assertive behaviour. And to talk about what appropriate behaviour looks like. Okay. To stand up for others, report bullying, and encourage the victim. Yes. So bystanders are the largest group. Yes, protect the bullied, perhaps. Good. Yes, so with bystanders, it's really important that we actually educate bystanders. So when we're dealing with bullying, we don't just want to educate the bully and teach the bully or the bullied, but actually bystanders are actually a really powerful group, and it's very important that we educate a whole community so that bystanders can take a role and be really to use their influence and their assertiveness to stop and reduce bullying as well. So I think there's been some research done, and if someone says to a bully, hey, stop that, there's a 50% chance that they'll stop it. So just by someone a bit more assertive and more confident coming up and saying, hey, stop that, the bully may stop as well. So bullies are concerned about what other people think, and the bystanders are often a silent majority, and it's really important that we teach bystanders not to be indifferent. So I would teach children that there are no innocent bystanders. If you know someone's being bullied and you stand by and do nothing about it, you're actually not innocent. You're part of the problem. Because if you know someone is having a difficult time or someone's suffering and you ignore it, you're actually allowing it to continue. You're not doing anything to stop it, so you're actually actively allowing it to continue. And it's actually really harmful to a person to switch off from someone else's suffering. So if you know someone's having a hard time or suffering and you say, not my business, I'm just going to keep out of it, you're actually harming yourself because you're becoming indifferent towards someone who's suffering, and that's not actually helpful as well. So bystanders need to not sort of think, none of my business, I'm going to keep out of it. But there are some ways of being bystanders that aren't so risky as well. So I would encourage a bystander not just to be a bystander, but to become an upstander. So someone who uses their influence and stands up against bullying. And there are different ways to do that. So one way is to express dislike of bullying and to say, hey, stop that. Another one would be if a ringleader says, hey, let's leave this person out. Someone in the group can just say, oh, no, let's just all play together. Not laughing. If a bully puts someone down and ridicules someone, not laughing. And encouraging other people not to laugh because it's not funny is another way. Another way to be an upstander would be to see someone sitting on their own at lunchtime and to say, hey, come and sit with us. Because someone who is included in a group is less likely to be a target. So just including someone is a very safe way to be an upstander. Upstanders need to become witnesses. They need to say what they've seen. So going and getting support, external support, is also a way to be an upstander. And also, just as someone's mentioned before, encouraging the person, saying it's not your fault, and walking away with them. Come with me, let's go and talk to the teacher. Or if the person's scared to tell a teacher, they can go to the teacher instead. So I think a lot of people don't do that because they're scared of becoming the target. It's really important that we teach children to do what's right, not what's easy, but also teachers have got ways of dealing with that too so that they don't become a target as well. But we need to teach our children not to become indifferent to someone else's suffering and to actually use their influence to say this is not okay. And if we motivate bystanders and we engage bystanders, we can really create a culture that says this is not okay, and the majority voice is saying this is not okay, and that's a very powerful thing. So we really do need to not just deal with the bully and the bullied, but we need to deal with bystanders and educate bystanders as well. Okay, so an approach to bullying which moves each player towards more productive behaviour is desirable. So when we're thinking about bullying and how to deal with bullying, we need to think about what sort of approaches that we'd like to employ and what we're really wanting. So are we just wanting to punish the bully and stop the behaviour, or are we wanting to move the bully on and teach them something? So as a parent, it's very tempting if your child is bullied to want revenge and to want the person who's bullying your child to get into trouble and to suffer consequences for that and to have some sort of a punishment. But I think as a parent, what you really want is for that person to learn ways of managing themselves so that they get their needs of attention and respect met without controlling and dominating. So what I think we really want when we think about it is we want the person who's bullying to move on and to stop bullying and to learn really productive ways. So simply punishing a child doesn't teach them those things. There are some other practices that deal with bullying that are a lot more restorative and that teach them something as well. So I would actually say that I would deal with bullying as a social issue, and I would primarily deal with bullying in the first instance as a social issue. So usually if it's people making friends the wrong way, I would teach them how to make friends the right way and encourage them to listen to what's happening to the person that they're bullying and to sort out whatever the issues are as well. So if you deal with bullying as a social issue, it takes a lot of the trouble out of it as well. If children think that the bully is going to get into a lot of trouble, they're less likely to tell a teacher what's happening because they're concerned that the bully is going to get into trouble and that the bully will target them for getting them into trouble. So a less punitive approach to bullying that deals with it as a social issue means that children can actually tell you what's happening without fear of retribution. The bully doesn't have to get in trouble for it, but gets to learn to listen, to develop empathy, to hear what's happening. So I would deal with that with a social group and get children talking about what's happening. Allow the person who's being bullied to tell the bully what's happening and how they feel is very powerful. And for the bully to listen and to develop empathy is really, really crucial, so that they can move out of that as well. So dealing with bullying as a social issue frees people up to start telling you what's happening, and then you do hear what's happening. If you just deal with bullying very punitively, it tends to go underground, and bullies just become more clever at bullying and more clever at doing it in a way a teacher won't see it. So taking some of that punitive approach out of it and dealing with it in a restorative way, dealing with it as a social issue, takes away that, allows people to report what's happening without fear, and allows the bully to move on, because really we don't want to treat a bully in a way that labels a bully and says, once a bully, always a bully. But it's important to treat bullying in a way that actually lets the bully move out of it, and to say, you can behave better than this. These are some ways that you could behave, and let them start to move on and establish appropriate behaviours. So I would encourage that as an approach to bullying. So a lot of the schools have restorative justice, ways of dealing with bullying or dealing with it as socially, and I think that's a really ideal approach. Of course, if someone won't develop empathy, if you work with someone who's been bullying someone and they don't develop empathy after being given the opportunity, and they don't respond to dealing with bullying in more productive ways, then that's when you do need to start bringing in consequences, and a school or an organisation have a duty of care to also protect other children as well. So I think in the first instance, it's really ideal to move someone along into more productive behaviour, and then of course there do need to be policies in place that allow consequences if a child's not responding to that, because people have to feel safe as well. But as parents, I would encourage you not just to go for revenge and think, I want the bully punished, but actually to go for restoration and a change of behaviour. And that's really the ideal. Just have a drink of water. Okay, I'd like to talk briefly about the role of contempt in bullying, because actually in order for someone to bully someone else, there has to be contempt. So bullying's not necessarily about anger, but more about contempt. So contempt is a really powerful attitude that allows people to treat someone else as less than. I think it was Nelson Mandela says that contempt is failing to see the divine in another person. So and sometimes contempt can develop because someone's done something irritating. So some children can be irritating, and a bully can think, I'm allowed to be treating that person that way because they're irritating. Or maybe a child has offended them and done something earlier on in the relationship, and the bully is holding an attitude towards that other child because they've been offended or hurt by that child. So usually you will find contempt, the right to treat that person as less than. And you actually can't treat people, you can't really target people and repeatedly act intentionally to harm them and to hurt them without contempt. If you respect someone, it's very hard to treat them poorly. So you really need that lack of respect and that attitude of contempt. So when dealing with a bullying situation, going back to find out where that contempt came from is also really important. If there was a disagreement or some hurt a long time ago, it can be a long time ago, it can be recently, going back to that and finding out where the contempt came in actually also helps the bully to move on, because they can address where that was. Often it's a misunderstanding, and just getting children to talk together can clear up the misunderstanding that's started the contempt as well. So it's very important to take the time to look at where contempt came in and to deal with that, because that really allows them to release each other and move on towards a positive relationship as well. And of course schools have bullying policies, and each school should have a bullying policy, or does have a bullying policy, and so you can ask your school to give you a copy of their bullying policy if you haven't seen it as well. So if you want to see a good example of a bullying policy, the school I work at, St George Christian School, has a very good bullying policy, and I think there's a link to this webinar, and you can email them and ask them to send you a copy. But your school would have a bullying policy, and staff would know about that bullying policy and should be informed about it as well. Okay, now I'd like to just spend a little bit of time before we move to some questions soon, just talking about some things you can do as parents to bully-proof your child. And when I'm talking about bully-proofing, I'm talking about how to help your child avoid being bullied, but also equally to avoid your child bullying, because we don't want our children to do either, and both are harmful. Getting bullied is harmful, but actually becoming a bully is also a harmful thing. And so it's important that we teach our children some patterns of behaving that allow them more productive ways to behave. So I'll just move on to my final slide, and my other ones will just be some recommendations of resources. Okay, so first thing, teach and model assertive behaviours. Now this is a really, really crucial one, and if I could just say one of these points, I would just explain this one to you. So the assertive behaviour as opposed to aggressive or passive behaviour. So when I'm teaching children, I call this aggressive behaviour aggro behaviour, passive behaviour weak behaviour, and I would call assertive behaviour cool behaviour. So aggressive behaviour, if someone annoys you or bothers you, would be to punch, hit, kick, maybe call them names, to hurt them, to look at them aggressively, and to threaten them. So that would be aggressive behaviour. Passive behaviour would be to look down, to look small, to speak in a soft voice, to maybe just to start to cry, to walk away, to not deal with it, or to give in when you don't really want to give in and do something you don't really want to do would also be weak or passive behaviour. Cool behaviour, and it's not cool as in like cool dude, but it's in cool as in keeping your cool. Cool behaviour is to stay in control, to stand tall, look someone in the eye, give them eye contact, speak in a firm voice, and say, stop doing that, I don't like it. So cool behaviour is actually staying in control of yourself, not looking at someone glaringly, not looking at someone threateningly, not looking down, not looking weak, but looking at someone in the eye. It's speaking firmly. It's not raising your voice. It's not softening your voice, but it's just speaking firmly, no name calling. And it's just very firmly saying to someone, stop it, I don't like it. So, and some people think that and I've heard some parents teach their children, if someone hurts you, go back harder. Someone does something to you, let them know where you stand, do it back. You're actually teaching your child to become the bully. So I would encourage you to teach your child not to become the aggressor back. Becoming the aggressor back also shows the bully that they've got you to lose control. So the bully knows at that point that they've hooked the person in, made them lose control, and got a really strong reaction where they couldn't stay in control of themselves. That's not a powerful position to lose control. So, and again, just giving in is not good too. Some people, I would say to children that weak behaviour is like being a doormat. Sometimes at people's door they have a welcome mat and people come and wipe their feet on it, and some people just let people continue to do that. So that's not the answer either. So cruel behaviour is staying in control, being firm, and sometimes children need to learn that. So if your child does need to learn to become more assertive as opposed to aggressive or passive, something you can role play with them too. So you can, pretend that you're, someone at school, and you can actually teach them to stand up, shoulders straight, not to slouch. Body language, look confident, raise their voice, not soft, not loud, not aggressive, but firm. No put downs. And you can rehearse with them how to speak and how to find that sort of confidence as well. So teach and model assertive behaviours. And along with that, I would encourage you to parent assertively. Some forms of parenting and some ways parents try to manage their children can be aggressive, and they can be disciplining in a very authoritarian, more aggressive way. Some parents can be a lot more passive in their parenting, but I'd really encourage you to parent assertively, to treat your children with respect and kindness, but be firm as well. And I've got a recommendation of a course on discipline if you're not sure how to do that. But children who are treated with respect by their parents know how to treat others with respect, and they also know how to be treated with respect, and they expect to be treated that way. So model assertive behaviours in the way you parent your child as well. Show and nurture empathy. So you can show empathy and nurture empathy by listening to your child, being empathetic towards them. You can encourage them to listen to others and be empathetic as well. And you can encourage them to put themselves in someone else's shoes. Even watching news or reading books, you can encourage them to think, what would that person be feeling now, do you think? So taking opportunities to nurture empathy in your child is something really important to teach them in order to bully-proof them. Positive social skills. Now that's come up, everyone typed that in their responses before. Teaching your child positive social skills, so teaching friendship skills as well. And I'll recommend some resources for that. Fostering healthy self-esteem. Confidence is very protective, and that came up in some of your comments before. If someone's got good body language, attention and respect by targeting other people, by putting them down, because they're comfortable with who they are as well. So working on a child's self-esteem is always really productive. And then challenge attitudes of contempt. Okay, if you see attitudes of contempt, challenge those attitudes. Children don't have to all be best friends. If they don't get on with another child, they don't have to be their best friend, but they need to treat other people with respect. So contempt would be treating someone with disrespect. So encourage them to not be everyone's best friend, but they should be treating all people evenly and respectfully, even if they're not someone that they hang out with and is their friend. So I think in order to deal with bullying successfully, we need a whole community approach. We need parents, teachers, children, all working together to treat each other well, to model respect, to model assertive behaviours, to say bullying's not okay, and to use our influence to create a culture where people are treated with respect. And again, dealing with the bully needs to be done that way as well. The bully needs to be educated respectfully and not labelled so that they can move on. They need to have respect modelled to them as well. Okay, I'm just going to let you know about some other seminars available, and I'm going to recommend some resources for you, and then it'll be time to answer any questions. So, okay, so some seminars. So I run the following seminars through Interrelate. I'll just explain them briefly because they're actually all very relevant in helping your children not become a bully or be bullied. So of course the first one is how to bully-proof your child. So there's a lot of things I haven't talked about in this briefing tonight due to time constraints. So I do have a full seminar which goes into a lot more, and so that's a seminar that if you found this helpful and you'd like to explore more, that you could book into. The challenge of discipline. So this is discipline with the end in mind. It's respectful discipline, which teaches children something. So it's not just discipline to keep your child under control now, but it's discipline to teach them self-control, discipline so that when they're an adult, they can operate really successfully in life. So if you're not sure how to discipline respectfully and firmly and really but successfully, then I'd really encourage you to come and learn to discipline in a really assertive way, because that's teaching your child a lot. Helping your child become resilient. So resilient thinking is the ability to bounce back and think well about difficulties and setbacks. So that's another 2.5 hour seminar which teaches you how to model and teach your child skills in resilient thinking. Helping your child manage emotions. That seminar looks at helping your children manage emotions in general, but then it has a focus on managing anger, and it will equip you to teach your child how to be angry and how to manage anger. And that's linked with bullying as well. It's really important. A child needs to, or anyone, a child or an adult needs to learn how to manage anger, stay in control, and make good choices. And so that seminar would really equip you to do that with your child. Helping children deal with anxiety is an important one as well. And then parenting teens as well. So those seminars are available to book through Interrelate. So I can speak at your community group, your school, through the PNC, any community group. I'm available to come and run these seminars, so you can call Interrelate. We will run them at Interrelate as well if you have enough people who'd like to come, but I mostly run those in schools. So I would encourage you to become more equipped in those areas and to attend those seminars, because they're all very relevant to equipping our children to have successful relationships, which actually bully-proofs them as well. Some additional resources I'll recommend to you. Okay, The Recess Queen is a great little picture book. I'd recommend it for infants and primary school children. It's about a girl called Mean Jean who was the recess queen. And it's a very great picture book that deals with bullying. It's a really good springboard to talk with your child about bullying. So I'd encourage you to get a hold of that book. It's fun, great artwork in it, and if you read it with your child, it will really lead you into some good conversations about bullying. Okay, The Bully, the Bullied and the Bystander is an excellent book by Barbara Coloroso, and she's also linked with the Kids Are Worth It website. KidsAreWorthIt.com is her website, so it's got some great resources about bullying. Ken Rigby, Professor Ken Rigby, is an Australian expert on bullying, and I've done some training with him. And he's written a book called 6 Basic Methods. So these are some methods that schools could use to deal with bullying, and he has a really comprehensive approach. So I'd recommend that book if you're wanting to look at approaches for bullying. Bully Blocking by Evelyn Field. She's actually got a version for adults as well, dealing with the bullying in the workplace. It's a great book of resources, which would actually like a workbook that you can go through with your child, and it will actually equip them to be more assertive, to teach them some social skills. It's a great little workbook to go through with your child. So if you want something to work on with your child, I'd recommend that book. Shadows in the Mirror is by an Australian author, and it's a novel aimed at probably, I'd say, more Year 9, Year 10 students, but it's a novel about bullying, and it's a great springboard again for talking about bullying. So I'd encourage that one for teenagers. I've already mentioned the Kids Are Worth It website. Michael Carr-Gregg has some excellent resources on his website, and the next two, Cyber Safety Solutions and Bullying No Way, have got some great resources as well. So they're just a few resources if you'd like to explore this more, and it'd be great to see you at a seminar so that you can really focus on equipping your child as well. So, okay, so that's really what I wanted to say about all I wanted to talk about tonight. That's a bit to squeeze into just under an hour. So I'm open for any questions for the next probably 5-10 minutes. So if you have any questions, I'll answer them if I can. I don't like to answer questions that I can't answer properly. I like to answer questions that I can answer thoroughly. So if I can't do your question justice, I'll refer you. And if I can do it justice, I'll answer it now. So I'll just wait and see if anyone has any questions for the next few minutes. And then if you do, I'll answer them. And if not, we'll finish. I've got some typing happening. So if you don't have any questions and you're leading us already, thank you very much for attending this webinar tonight. And if you do have any questions, I'll just wait and see it and I'll answer them. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a few people typing by the look of it. Okay, yes, so what if the bully doesn't acknowledge that there's a problem and the parents model and condone the behaviour? And look, that can happen. Parents aren't doing anyone any favour not to work with their child to acknowledge their behaviour and to move on. So no one's doing anyone a favour there. But there are some approaches that you can take if the bully doesn't acknowledge that there's a problem. I usually find that if you work with it socially and get people talking to each other, they do acknowledge that there's a problem. It's very powerful to have a group of people talking and hearing what each other has to say. So I think that's really effective. But then there are some other things you can do. So Professor Ken Rigby has a thing called method of shared concern. It's an approach that deals with bullying when then the bully doesn't have empathy for the person getting bullied and isn't necessarily acknowledging their contribution. So if you were to get Ken Rigby's book on bullying interventions, you would be able to read about method of shared concern. That specifically targets people who aren't really necessarily owning the problem for themselves. And of course, if people don't own the problem, you do have to start to have some consequences as well. But I do find when children hear someone else and develop empathy, they do start to own, and they own it more when they feel like they're not going to get into trouble. If they think they're going to get into trouble, they just keep deflecting. When they realise that there's no trouble, but they're going to be talking about it and learning, they tend to own it a lot more than if they feel like, and if they're just avoiding punishment as well. So sometimes the approach you take can help them own responsibility. What if the bully's a teacher? You know, look, a bully can be someone at work, it can be a teacher, it can be an adult, it can be a parent. Managing children is challenging, and some people do use controlling and dominating behaviour to manage children, unfortunately. If the bully's a teacher, I would probably encourage you to maybe share your awareness and speak to them about what's happening for your child. I'd encourage you to have conversations about that if that's the case. Sometimes it can be a teacher not coping and with a challenging class and just trying to get control and having, a lot of children in a classroom can be challenging. So I would again deal with that in a way that's restorative, and probably that teacher needs some support, and it'd be great if that teacher could have some support to manage, obviously, in more respectful ways. And as parents, we need that sometimes as well. Okay, how to tell kids to stay away or not be with the bullied person, because, sometimes children keep going back to the person who's bullying them, and sometimes we need to help them see that sometimes they need to switch friendship groups as well. I encourage children that there doesn't have, sometimes there's a popular group, there are different groups, but sometimes the popular group actually isn't the most fun group to be in, because the popular group's so busy managing their image that they're not actually enjoying themselves. So I actually talk about that with children and just encourage them not to necessarily be so focused on being in the popular group, but to be in a group they can just enjoy and have fun with. So sometimes there's sometimes children need to be encouraged to sort of move towards a friendship group that's more suited to who they are, and to consider whether they really do want to break into that group, and whether those people are really being a good friend if they're not treating them well as well. And sometimes the school can help a child move towards that as well. If you talk to teachers, they can help a child move towards a group of friends that might be more productive for them. So, and sometimes inviting other people over to play can be really helpful as well. So as parents, we obviously can't control who our children hang with at school, but we can, I suppose, nurture that in some good ways as well. I hope that's helpful. It's difficult when we're not having a two-way conversation, so feel free to clarify your question or ask more. Someone else is typing there. Okay. No, I think we're... Okay, I'll just wait another minute or two and see if there's any more questions and answer them, and if not, we'll finish. So thank you very much, and so if you're leaving us now, thank you for watching, and I'll answer these last couple of questions before we finish as well. Thank you. Thanks, Elaine, as well. Okay, someone's typing. My pleasure. Okay, look, I think I'll leave it there. So I'll finish just in a minute. How many attendings would you inquire for a PNC group? Okay, we would bill out the seminar to you, so you could contact Interrelate about the charges of a seminar. So basically, to cover your costs, I'd say you probably need probably, I don't know, 20, 25 people to cover your costs. I can run a group for 5 people, I can run it for 100 people. So so maybe if you ring up Interrelate and check out what a seminar would cost, then you could work out what you need to bill parents. Sometimes if you've got funding, it's not an issue, but if you don't have funding for it, then usually schools charge about $15 a head for people to attend, and we provide a manual, like notes as well. So this seminar would come with notes. All the seminars come with notes. They go for 2.5 hours. If you call Interrelate, they can give you all the details, and their number is on, I think, one of the pages you've got. So I can read it out to you anyway. There, it's written down. Actually, it's on one of your screens. 9585224400 from memory. Great, thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to close there. If you have any questions, if you want any referrals beyond this, if you want to book any courses, just give Interrelate a call. If you want a copy of a school bullying policy, you could log on to the St George Christian School website, and we'd be happy to, you can email, and we'd be happy to send you a copy of a bullying policy. I'd encourage you to check out your own school's bullying policy. Thank you very much, and I'm going to close.